There's no such thing as price gouging. When you hear somebody use the term price gouging, it's an indicator that you're dealing with somebody who's either economically illiterate or they're ideologically pushing something that has nothing to do with price gouging itself. They're looking to implement government controls that don't exist at that time. So, obviously, with the hurricanes coming through the southeast, this is a topic that often comes up. And to understand why there really is no such thing as price gouging, I'm going to give you a general idea, and then I'm going to get into a very specific occurrence that I had to deal with a few years back. When shortage situations occur, there needs to be a way for the consumer market to tell the middleman and the production market that more of something is needed someplace else. There is no government department that can figure out how much of a certain thing people need versus how much actually is in existence. Every attempt to do that creates shortage because there literally is no way to do that from a top down view. So I'm going to give you a real great example that I have to deal with frequently, which is hay and cows. Now, I'll explain to you what happens normally. In a normal situation, a particular area will get, okay, I'll say my state will get 2 to 3 cuttings per year, meaning the grass gets to a certain length to where it can be cut and baled, typically at least 2 times under normal circumstances, but three isn't completely unusual. It all depends on the rain, the heat, and everything else like that. Now, some people supplement their cows all year long with some level of hay, some feed throughout the entire winter. The key is you can't feed your cows bagged feed for months and months and still come ahead. A huge amount of their diet needs to be grass or hay. Now, often, because when you do have 3 cuttings per year, that often makes more hay than what people actually need. So there's a lot of times local excesses that end up kept in storage until it sells or has to be dumped, meaning it spoils to the point where no one's going to buy it. It is not unusual to have like a particular person you buy hay from, if there wasn't enough hay, kind of run out towards the end of the season or come start getting tight where you have to be uh, less picky about what you feed your cows. Now, several years back, we had a drought. And one of the things you need to understand is that if you don't do the farmer thing, grass doesn't just suddenly disappear overnight. You essentially have, especially if you're doing any kind of rotational grazing, you have grass the cows haven't touched yet. Uh, it doesn't immediately go brown, and even when it does go brown, there's still nutritional value in it until you're basically down to the ground level. So when the drought starts, you usually have some level of grass on the ground that's still edible for your cows, that's still nutritious. The trick starts to become you have to figure out, do you have enough to get you to the next rain? And is it going to rain? So a neat thing that happens with grass is even when it looks absolutely horrible and almost looks desert like, if you get a decent rainstorm, it literally greens up overnight. And within a couple of days, you have almost enough growth to start feeding your cows again. I should wait a little bit, but the point being is it can turn around very quickly. So a lot of farmers sit when the drought starts, kind of hemming and hawing, going, do I want to start getting hay or do I want to wait it out until it starts growing again? Uh, your tip off is when you start looking online and start seeing prices beginning to rise. You know what it should be roughly for the market. And when the prices are rising, that tells you people are starting to buy up the hay. That means well, one, they're giving you a warning that they don't believe it's going to rain soon. And it's also giving you a warning that the local supply is being depleted. So that tells you when to get in. Now, once the price gets high enough, it starts rapidly becoming a choice where you say, well, I can't really maintain this herd at this price level and still make a profit. So then you start getting into a situation where you thin the herds. Uh, Depending on what you got going, you either uh, sell the cows to other areas where there is grass and they get shipped live to be like dairy cows to basically do their thing elsewhere. And if they're ultimately going to be beef cows for meat, which technically they all are in the end, but uh, if they're ending up meat, they may be sent to the processor early, or they might be sent to the feedlots early to get them fattened up. And then you have to start deciding how much of a genetic stock of herd you want to leave in reserve, because you don't ever want to sell everything off completely. And so this is the decision making, but you wouldn't be able to make this decision without the prices telling you that the hay is running out. If somebody artificially capped the price of hay, uh, you might get into a situation where you're sitting there with a large herd of cows and then suddenly have no way to feed them. And the only way you can deal with the situation is to dump them at whatever price the market will accept. So what the hay price does is allows a farmer to make decisions on what the herd should look like. Now, in this particular drought, only one cutting had come in. There was not a second cutting or a third cutting. So at this point, we see the prices going up and hay is selling rapidly. There are people who keep hay in their barns, some of it a little bit too long. It's not the greatest quality hay in the world. They start putting their hay into the market. And that is also indicator when you start seeing, you buy hay and you show up and look at it going, wow, this is not very good looking stuff. Also an indicator that the market's telling you that the shortage is there. There is not enough hay to go around. So as the prices go up, locals will start scouring the area for hay in fields or storage that someone might be missing. You have farmers that either retired or might be ill. They might be sitting on a stockpile uh, for later in the season, not fully realizing they should be selling it now. So these initial middlemen are running out there gobbling up the rest of the hay in the market, sometimes for themselves, other times to resell at a better profit. Uh, if the price signals weren't there, people wouldn't be looking for this. Some of this hay would end up going completely to rot and wouldn't be useful at all. So it's good that they're doing this. So the prices keep going up. At this point, the locals who have long haul trucks, uh, essentially rigs that are in good shape, flatbeds, sometimes even box trucks, they begin to go outside the area, go outside the drought area looking for hay. Uh, so there's a lot of things that go into this where you're going a much longer distance to get your hay. There's a whole bunch of things that start coming into a factor. So imagine you load up your truck, you pay a lot more on the distant end. You have to pay for your gas to get there and come back. Uh, and you do risk the fact that all of a sudden it could be pouring rain when you get back. You may have spent a whole bunch on hay that you're never going to get your money back on now that everybody's got grass again. That's the first issue. They're taking the risk that the market won't support the price that they've brought it in at. You also have the risk of long haul driving with a load. It's not, trucking isn't the safest way to do things, especially when you're not typically a long haul trucker. Your equipment, your rig and everything may not be best set up for that thing. So there's risk involved to you and your equipment. There's risk on the other end of the hay not being there, meaning you may end up having to pay more than what you were even planning on paying. The hay you may have made a deal with over the phone or internet may not be the quality that it was perceived at the distance. So they're taking risks on that end. And then there's time wear and tear on the equipment. So they have to be compensated for what they're doing in order to bring the hay all the way back to you. If the prices didn't go up, there would be no incentive to do this in the first place. So there would be no hay without the prices. So prices continue to go up. Now what happens is the local haulers are now willing to range out even further. Essentially what happens is in the drought area, you get a ring of drought, and then basically you kind of get this spiraling effect as the hay guys go out further and further and further to bring hay back to the drought area. As the local haulers are willing to range out further because the prices are higher to support it. Now you got distant haulers, people who don't work in the area looking to haul hay in. So you might have people 2, 3 states over saying, "Hey, it's worth hauling hay into your area." So they'll load up their flatbed, bring it in. They may not even have a buyer on the other end. They may just come in, make a deal with somebody, try to find the biggest supplier in the area and say, "Hey, you looking for hay?" I say hay a lot, don't I? Okay. So farmers now in the distant areas are saying, "Oh," instead of hay, they say, "Oh." So they're saying, "Oh, I have this stockpiled hay that I'm not sure is ever going to, it might end up rotting before I can use it because there's so much here." So they start looking for people who are trying to sell in the drought area. So they get to empty out their excess stockpiles at a handsome profit to people who haul it long distance, who also make a handsome profit. And the people in the drought area end up getting the hay they need to feed their cattle. Now, if there wasn't if price gouging, as people call it, didn't exist, there would be no hay. There would be absolutely no incentive for people to bring it in at its normal market rate because they would lose money doing it. So when we have storms, we know there's going to be a need for food and water and batteries and toiletries, tarps, and eventually building supplies. Now, some of this is going to get covered by donations, and that's a wonderful thing. It's great that people are willing to go out and help other people do things. But the problem is just because there's a donation system in place doesn't mean that anybody has gained a capability to figure out what the demands are and how much supply is needed. Uh, because they're working completely out the price system, they could be hauling loads and loads of stuff down there that no one actually needs. Or on the other hand, they could deplete all their donation reserves and bring it down there and still not fulfill the needs of everyone down there. So therefore, you still need the market to supply outside of what's happening in the donations. So the if bottled water is still at a premium, it's telling everyone there's a price signal that more water is needed. This is even helpful to the people who are doing the donation system because they're like, well, if people are still trying to charge, $10 for a case of water, that means it's in short supply, so we need to bring more down there. So the price signal is actually even beneficial to the donation system. So when there is no price signal, when the government says, okay, this is the maximum price you can charge and nobody can charge a single penny more, you never know when to stop or keep going. Prices will tell you both. So you need that price element in place. So don't disparage the so-called gouger. The gouger is a speculator to a certain extent, another word that gets bad press. But what this person is doing is saying, is there a need? And if people still buy at that price, it is saying, yes, there is a need. So that tells everybody to keep sending, in this case, water to that location because the price is too high. Both donations and people who are basically trying to make a buck and fulfill a need. As long as the price is high, everything will keep going there. If the price signals stay high enough long enough, that's an indicator that additional production needs to occur. So various companies might open up a second shift to keep making product to fulfill something. They may reroute trucking to an area saying, well, gee, we can make a lot more money down here, trucking down here. So that's telling us we need to go that way. Uh, so anybody who demands price caps says, well, there can't be any higher price. They're trying to sound like they're being empathetic, but they are in actuality denying people what they need in order to complete the crisis. Without the price signals, uh, you're basically prolonging the crisis. So, anybody watching my videos in the affected areas, anyone spotting uh, some really high price situations, anyone dealing with the donation aspects of things on either end? Curious what you're seeing or what you're hearing? Let me know in the comments below. Please smash the like button. If the YouTube algorithms brought you here and you're not a regular subscriber, please check out my other titles. Probably a lot you might find interesting. Consider subscribing. And if you know somebody who might find this interesting, please share it with them. Thank you for spending time with me this evening. Hope to see you again in a future video.